People with high willpower use willpower less. And you can build willpower like a muscle through repeated use. This is a contradiction, right? Not quite, but it may be the reason why your attempts to build discipline simply aren't working.
I'm Will. At the age of 26, I've completed a 100-mile ultramarathon, tried stand-up comedy as a self-conscious introvert, done a 10-day silent Vipassana meditation retreat, and approached over 1,000 women. In this show, I break down the principles that help me to do all of these challenging things and continue to add to the list. Every week, I leave you with one new simple daily action to build your own willpower and come along for the journey. Welcome to the Willpower Podcast.
So today I want to talk about this seeming contradiction that I've noticed in books like Atomic Habits and The Willpower Instinct, where they've brought up both of these ideas. And for me, I've never seen the bridge between them. I've never understood how they can both be true at once. Now, I do want to say these are both excellent books that have been very influential to me, and I highly recommend that you pick them up and read them if you haven't already. Today, I'm going to break down this contradiction and why it isn't actually a contradiction. So in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to help you understand that. Why is it not a contradiction? We're also going to talk about an awesome lesson from the gladiators of ancient Rome that we can apply to building willpower. So this quote-unquote contradiction is one that I've been confused about for years, and it looks something like this. First of all, behavioral science says that people with the highest willpower often use their willpower the least amount because their environment is set up precisely for what they need to be doing, right? It's like an Olympic athlete has his schedule set out. He has his swim bag by the door, whatever his sport is, his spikes are by the door. He's ready to go. He's not using extra willpower. However, we also learn in these books and in these studies that willpower can be strengthened through practices that exercise it. So that could be working out, doing something hard like a cold plunge, not eating cookies when they're there. These things, we're told, strengthen our willpower. So how can those both be true? How can it be true that we can strengthen it, but that the people with the strongest ones don't exercise it? That doesn't really make sense, does it? That brings us up to the practical question. Should we be exercising our willpower? Or should we simply set up our environment as precisely as we can so that we never need to use it? Now, the answer to that question is very nuanced, and that's why I'm recording an entire podcast episode to discuss it. To start us off in understanding this predicament that we're in, let's go back to ancient Rome and understand the training of the gladiators. So, gladiator schools in ancient Rome were a mix. They were a mix between elite sports training facilities, like super modern for the time, and high security prisons. And the reason why is because the majority of the gladiators were not there by choice. They were often slaves, prisoners of war, or criminals. A very small percentage of gladiators were there by choice as volunteers, people who actually wanted the glory of being a gladiator. For the most part, they were forced into doing this. In these schools, they learned to fight. No shit. Specifically, they were trained to fight in a way that would be entertaining to crowds and which kept them alive. These gladiator schools were run as businesses. And so losing gladiators was not something that the person who ran the school wanted to happen, right? They wanted to keep the gladiators around. So they would teach them to be entertaining so that people wanted to watch without them getting killed. That's something that we kind of misunderstand. We think to gladiators, we think, okay, one of them died every time. Like that was the whole point of it. Not quite the case. A lot of the times they would not die. They would go until one of them gave up or the referee called it, and then they would recover, live to fight another fight. So, in the schools, they would train daily, typically in preparation for an upcoming fight against another gladiator. They also didn't fight all that frequently. We think that they would fight, every single week. As long as they're alive, they're fighting. It's not quite the case. Gladiators would fight more like modern MMA, UFC fighters. They would fight maybe 2 to 3 times a year and then spend the time in between recovering and training for their next bout. There were also styles of gladiators, similar to MMA. And they would often be matched with an opponent with a completely different style. So one famous matchup would be between what was called a retiarius, which was a net man. This is a guy who was smaller. He would carry a net, try and capture his opponent in a net, tangle him up, as well as a trident to spear his opponent. And that net man would be paired with a secutor, who's called a pursuer. This was a much heavier set, strong, heavy man with armor, sword, shield, all of that. And so there's like an interesting matchup to see, okay, what happens when this quicker, smaller trickster fights this kind of brute of a man who's just trying to pummel him. Now, we're going to learn from these secutors, this certain style of fighter, something very telling because of how they trained. So, in training, secutor be using heavy wooden swords, heavier armor, repeated strikes to a wooden post to practice their striking with the sword. In comparison, when came performance time, when he's set up against this net man, this Retiarius, he would have lighter armor, super light metal sword, and an opponent, the Retiarius, who is much less durable than a wooden post. You can imagine hitting a wooden post enough to do damage to it with a wooden sword. Now imagine doing that to a man who is half your weight. So it sounds obvious when we lay this out, but the principle is much less obvious. And that principle is something like this. The risk of imposing friction during performance is much higher than adding friction during practice. Okay? During practice, the secutor has the ability, the freedom to increase the struggle, the difficulty, increase the weight, increase the amount of power he needs. He's safe to do that. He can increase the friction. However, in the performance, in the actual fight, when there is something on the line, you can bet your ass that he is doing everything he can to increase his odds of success. That is the primary focus in those moments. If he tires out during a training session, he's going to be fine. Actually, probably more than fine. He'll probably recover stronger. If, on the other hand, he tires out during a match, the consequences could be lethal. So that's our willpower lesson. That's what we're going to tie back to our contradiction from earlier, that we can build our willpower like a muscle, but we also want to set up our environment to make us need it the least. So what we are failing to understand when we assume that this is a contradiction is that we are talking about two separate instances. The times when we want to build our willpower like a muscle are in low stakes practice scenarios. When we want our willpower to be streamlined, to need as little of it as possible, are our high stakes performance bouts. Now, the issue is in a day-to-day, in your typical life, we're not gladiators, right? We're not UFC fighters. We're not, most of us aren't even like focusing completely on athletics in general, where performance and practice is very clearly defined. It's much more obvious what that means. So that's why we need to redefine practice and performance into these low stakes, high stakes terms. So what do I mean by low stakes and high stakes? So high stakes activities are the ones in which failure takes a irreversible step backwards in the wrong direction. So this would be something that if you fail at it, you are going to be taking a clear step backwards. Low stakes activities are the ones in which failure keeps us in place or even moves us forward. Okay, so think about things where, okay, if I fail at this thing, it doesn't move me backwards, it doesn't hurt me, it might actually help me. Okay, so if I have this huge goal of running a marathon, and this one's kind of obvious, I can change the training to make it more difficult for me so that on race day, I actually have the ability to run perfectly, like run with the least number of things in my way, and I can do the best possible. Let's think of examples now. I may think that putting cookies in my pantry is a way to build willpower because now I have to go buy them and say no to them every time, right? It's a way to practice not eating the cookies. This is actually a pretty high stakes willpower activity for the majority of us who are prone to wanting sweets, wanting to eat cookies. Because failure here does not only mean eating the cookie, which first of all is already a step backwards, right? If you're thinking about, oh, I want to lose weight, I want to eat less sugar, blah, 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 eating a cookie is a step in the wrong direction, right? It's not a harmless failure. It also creates patterns. Buy cookies. I eat cookies. These neural circuits start to be built because of the fact that you went for the cookie. So failure here takes us back a step, which makes this a high stakes activity. The other component of the cookie scenario is that it requires us to be on all the time. It's not self-contained. It's not something that you can just do to train your willpower. You have to be on all the time. And when your willpower is lowest, you bet your ass you're going to be thinking about those cookies. That would be like wanting to build your strength. And so you put on a weighted vest and you wear it all the time. And you wear it until it just wears you down and breaks your muscles apart. So we need a better understanding of willpower than to just completely destroy it, right? We need the ability to recover it as well. Now, let's talk low stakes. Something like intending to go on a cold plunge, getting a cold plunge membership, getting a cold plunge. Those things are low stakes activities. And why is that? And this depends, of course. I'm talking about a normal person who's not an athlete. If you're an athlete, maybe a cold plunge is a high stakes activity because you need this. You're like, I fucking need to recover for tomorrow. It's really important, and not doing it would be a step backwards. But for us normal folk who are not professional athletes, doing a cold plunge is a low stakes activity. If I fail, I just don't do it, right? And actually, I might learn something about myself. I might say, okay, didn't do it because I didn't have my swimsuit laid out or I didn't have a towel ready. I can do this for next time so that I actually do it. It's possible that we're actually taking a step forward in our failure. If it's something like getting a membership, that is a huge step forward because guess what? Now I'm paying for it. Now I feel like I need to go do it. So that's another. Even if I fail to do it that day, I'm taking a step forward in the likelihood that I do it moving forward. So in general, we are looking for activities that do not hurt us when we inevitably fail. We are going to fail at times, right? If we just assume, okay, I'm going to succeed every day, I'm never going to have any weakness of willpower, it's just not realistic. Those times are going to come. So we want to find these ways to push ourselves a little extra, to add extra friction in, only in the scenarios where it does not hurt us when we fail. So with that, let's come up with our action for this week. So we want to find an action that exercises our willpower without the large costs associated with failing. It means it should be self-contained. Unlike the cookie example, this should not be something that we're required to be on all the time, like having cookies in the pantry. It also needs to be extremely simple. That is one of the core tenets of the show, that we find the simplest activities that sound like, duh, I can do that. It sounds silly how simple they are, that anybody can do it, but they also need to have a wide range of impacts that help even the people who already have the strongest willpower. Doing something simple still adds something to their life. So with that, here is my proposal for this week's action. We are going to add a very simple breathing exercise into our mornings. So you're going to pick a time in your morning. I want you to actually think about it right now. When's a time where you have about a minute or two? Let's say maybe you wake up, open your eyes, sit up in bed. Maybe that's the time. Maybe it's when you stand up. Maybe it's when you go to the bathroom. Maybe it's right before you brush your teeth. Maybe it's right after you brush your teeth. I want you to right now pick that time. What we're going to do is we're going to count 10 breaths. Okay? We're going to do nothing else, but we are going to fully focus our attention entirely on the breath. So we're going to do deep breaths 10 times. 1, 2, and then all the way up to 10. Let's talk about it. As silly of a practice as this sounds, it will require effort and focus. Those are two extremely strong pieces of willpower. Your ability to exert effort, obviously. Your ability to focus, obviously. In doing those two things, you will be building this willpower muscle. Even though willpower isn't exactly a muscle, there are pieces of it that we can treat as such as our ability to pay attention to something and our ability to exert effort. Also, this is a very low stakes scenario. We are not worried. It's like the Gladiator training ground, right? We're just waking up. We're doing something that we didn't do before. So we're not losing anything if we don't do it. We're not taking a step back. We're simply adding in this 10 breath exercise, bringing our entire attention back. And if we were to fail, guess what? We can go back to the breath. Or we don't go back to the breath and we simply go on with our day. We forget about that thing and we are right back where we started, even with a bit of a learning experience, a chance to tomorrow come back better. Do it, pay attention for the full 10 breaths. And you probably will notice that. Even just 10 breaths, for most people, myself included, we're going to lose focus. We're like doing 3 breaths, 4 breaths. All of a sudden you're thinking about what's for breakfast. Think about, okay, what's the first thing I need to do for work? And then you realize, okay, I've just been breathing and I completely forgot to count. So you will have that happen. You will fail. It's a low stakes scenario. It doesn't matter. It's okay to fail. It doesn't hurt us. As always, we're thinking about ripple effects when we're creating these. Super important. So how does focusing on the breath for 10 breaths work on a larger scale? How does that ripple outward? First, gives us access to willpower in other areas of our life. So just this small practice is going to strengthen our ability to exert effort and to maintain our focus. So there are many ways where you can imagine. Something obvious would be like, an exam or focusing on a work assignment. It's pretty obvious why attention is important in those moments, why being able to focus is very important. But at the same time, moments like when you're deciding whether or not to stop running, when you're in the middle of a run and you're not quite done yet, but you are fucking not feeling it anymore, this decision about whether or not to stop early or not is actually a huge element of that decision comes down to focus, your ability to maintain your attention. Let's say I go for a run and my goal is to run for 30 minutes, okay? And I have this overarching goal of losing weight and getting into better shape and feeling more confident in my physical ability. When I'm in that run, if my attention is moving off of that goal and I'm forgetting that goal, and my attention is going to, oh, this would feel so good to just stop right now. I would love to just go home and forget about this whole run thing. If my attention is moving off of that primary focus of I am doing this for myself to be a stronger person, to be more capable, there's a much more likely chance of me not doing it, me quitting. So attention is huge. So that's one way that we can build it. That would be more of a high stakes scenario, right? So building it in these low stakes is by practice, so that when we're in performance moments in life, we are able to apply willpower. It also opens us up to more opportunities to learn, more low stakes, okay? So the first piece of it is, okay, we're building it so that we can apply it to high stakes scenarios. Now we're saying, okay, when we're doing low stakes stuff, we're going to see more opportunities for low stakes practice. There are lots of moments you'll find throughout your day where you can practice your willpower. One example would be if I'm waiting in line. Immediately I'm like, oh, I'm going to pull out my phone. Everyone else is doing it and I'm bored. Or I'm uncomfortable because everyone else is doing it and I don't want to be the only one standing here like a fucking lunatic. This is a low stakes moment to practice some more willpower. I could be going for a walk with my dog and I go, hey, this is a low stakes opportunity to increase the friction a little bit. Let me throw on my weight vest. Or it could be as simple as, okay, yesterday I did this breathing thing and I've been noticing that in these performance, when I'm actually pursuing my goals that are more important, high stakes scenarios, I'm having more willpower. So I'm going to extend this breathing practice. I'm going to do 20 breaths today. I'm going to do 50 breaths today. I'm going to do 20 minutes of breathing. Like those things will come off as ripple effects, even though our only focus, our only measure here is just to hit 10 breaths. To continue down the list, it also helps balance our dopamine systems. This is something I talked about 2 weeks ago and has its own entire multitude of benefits that come from these low stimulation activities. This is a great one to practice those and to balance that system. To understand all of those, you'll probably want to listen to that entire episode because I go more in depth about how dopamine works and why having a high stimulation lifestyle is depleting our willpower. More than anything, this serves as a reminder of our continued effort to develop willpower. Each of us is on this journey just by the fact that we're listening here, the fact that I'm talking about it. I also know on more of a subjective level, when I wake up, there are a lot of times where my attitude towards the day is uncertain. I'm almost like I was just dreaming a minute ago, having the time of my life, and now I'm like brought up into reality and just what the fuck? Thinking about, I gotta have a coffee, this sucks, gotta go for a run today. Just having 10 breaths can reset my physiology, get my brain into a place where it's relaxed, it's feeling actually excited for the day, it's saying what's next. This is one of those tiny actions that really sets us up for success. So this is the time for the most important part of the show, the commitment. Okay, so we just talked for a long time, gladiators and bullshit like that. Now we're actually going to commit to making a change in our lives. Okay, just the fact that you're still listening probably meant that I ignited some spark within you. Now's the time to grab that spark and hold tight to it. Use it for fuel. With me, I want you to say that tomorrow you are going to commit to 10 breaths of focused breathing in the morning. You already picked the time when you're going to do this. It could be when you wake up. It could be when you get out of bed. It could be when you go to the bathroom. It could be before you brush your teeth, after you brush your teeth, whatever. Pick your moment and commit to it with me. I will do this tomorrow. I want you to say it out loud. I will do this tomorrow. As you're saying this, remember when you're going to do it, commit it to yourself, commit it to me, say it out loud. If you're feeling brave, you can use this show as a place of accountability. You can comment below that you are in on this commitment. That's totally up to you if that is something that helps you. Every week I break down the rules of the show because I don't want to just throw shit at you and expect that you know exactly what to do with it. So I want to make sure that we have clear guidelines in place and that we understand how to best implement these actions and these ideas, these concepts that I bring up every week. First rule is that success is defined as 5 out of 7 completions per week. So in an entire week, out of the 7 days, a success is defined by 5 completions, 5 days that we do the action. That gives us the ability to be imperfect, the ability to fail without really failing. Okay? 5 times we want to be doing this action. this breathing. We aim to do a maximum of 1 new habit per 3 days. I highly recommend that you go listen back to old episodes, but I want you to be careful and not add on too many things at once. My recommendation is that you do 1 new habit every 3 days. So you give yourself at least 3 days to really cement this one into place before adding on another. Our next rule is to do each habit for at least a month. Make sure that you are continuing with it for a month. You give it a fair shot, even if after the first week you're like, I don't know about this. Just remind yourself it's only for a month. I'm going to see what it does for me after that full. Last rule, most important, the one I have been guilty of breaking recently, is tracking your habits. I've been traveling and it has been hard to remember. But tracking your habits is super, super important. For me, it is easy to assume that I'm doing everything. I'm like, oh yeah, I've been doing this at least 5 days a week. And then I track them and I realize, I did it twice last week. Like I'm doing it nowhere as near as I thought. Because my mind goes to the place of wishful thinking. It's like, yeah, dude, you're the best. You do this all the time. Not true. Tracking my habits helps me stay completely on top of that stuff. I have 2 apps that can help with this. One is called Grooves. That one is super clean for like very analytical people who want to see the impacts of their habits, who want to see graphs and stuff like that. The other one is called Habit Empire. That one is more of a fun game. It's less polished. It's more of a fun project that I did. And that one lets you build a village, build an empire around your habits. So you track your habits and that gives you resources to create your village. Try those out. If you would like a guide to building very fundamental level of willpower, just to kind of institute the base level patterns, habits, routines, that will give you a great start on your willpower journey. I have a link below to get that for free. So I will see you next week. As always, thank you so much for listening. You can always, share with a friend who could use something like this. Follow, subscribe, like, comment, do all that stuff. That stuff helps us grow. It helps me get the message out to other people. But most importantly, above all of that, the best thing you can do is commit to this action and actually do it. If nothing else happens and I just get you, the listener, right now to do this action tomorrow morning, that will be a huge, huge, huge success for me. I can get it out to the entire world, and if no one does it, then I've failed and it didn't mean anything. So do the action. That's the most important thing. Just a reminder, your dream life is out there. It's out there for you to go and create. And this show is all about turning you into the person who is able to create that life. I believe in you. I think it's coming. So with that, I will see you next week. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and we will be back. Bye, everybody.